Hello, my name is Susanna Piaja, and I'm very excited to dive into a kind of a reflection and evaluation of some of the different theories and approaches we've learned in this integrative theology and counseling class. One thing I kind of gleaned from this class overall is I'm currently pursuing the non-licensure route here at LeTourneau, and just showing how the different approaches and the different techniques and skills are so applicable in our day-to-day lives, no matter what career we are pursuing, because we are, in most of our careers, we are just working with people and people who are made in the image of God, and people who, are broken, and all need to see the healing presence found in Jesus, which is actually a really great segue because, looking at what all the different approaches that we've talked about over these 3 weeks, the one that I think kind of resonated with me the most would be the integrative approach, because I believe it's just a great way of looking at humans of just holistically, looking at them through a psychological, theological, and a spiritual lens, which is so important. Because sometimes it can be really easy to just get focused on, the diagnosis or the assessment. But looking at the client through, the lens of all those different layers can better give them the holistic care that they need to just grow in healing and uncovering kind of those deep wounds that they might have. And I mean, if we look at humans and, the approach also really takes a grasp of looking at individuals as created in the image of God. And I really do believe that just looking at individuals as image bearers of God really changes our perspective of how we treat them, how we just work with them. And I think that's also really just crucial in just being a relational approach and just looking at who we are as humans and then looking at who God has called us to be as humans as well. Because I think sometimes it's very easy, especially for individuals who are going through counseling, to be caught up in a false identity or to be caught up in the emotions or baggage or whatever they are bringing into counseling. So I think just why I agree with the approach so well is because I think it really lives out, especially Romans 8:1-2, which talks about, therefore there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, because through Christ, the law of the Spirit gives life and sets you free from death and free from the law of sin. And so just looking at the approach and how it is holistic, humans are, psychosocial, emotional, spiritual beings. So looking at them holistically and giving them the care that they need, and then also putting that on top of the just idea of being image bearers of God, being just created in His image, and putting on that identity of who am I in Christ? Because that's a very common question that we have is, who am I? Why am I here? But when you lay that foundation of integrating, who we are in Christ, it is just great to see the breakthrough that can happen. And that's why also just looking at my own personal life, I've gone to counseling before, and, I've seen it, just God use counseling to really break false views I had of myself. And so that's why I really love this approach, because I feel like my counselor used kind of an integrative approach when helping me work through some of my struggles. And I, was just in a really abusive emotional relationship where the person I was with was constantly telling me these false identities of who I was and not identities who God had called me to be. So, integrating those truths of holistically who I am in Christ, my counselor was able to help me to walk through freedom and just helping me shift my mindset. And a lot of that, like with the integrative approach, was just reflecting cognitively of those false identities that I was putting on myself. And I think also the integrative approach, which I've seen in my own life, is just not only the counselor, reflecting back of who Christ is and who God has called us to be, but the importance of gathering together and having a team, a support group, a small group to help you walk through that kind of mindset change and that reflection. And so that's why I just really love Hebrews 12:1-2, which says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run the race with perseverance, the race that is marked out for us." And this is the real crucial part: fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, for the joy set before us endured the cross, scorning shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So just showing that, we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. We're surrounded by a group of people that want to see us, holistically heal and find our identity in Christ. And it really comes, back down to Christ and what he's done in us. I know what Christ has done in my life has exponentially helped me to grow in my faith. And so kind of wrapping up and reflecting, on the integrative approach, the reason why I also really like it is some of the advantages it has. I think the interpersonal relationship between the client and counselor is very high and very emphasized. So much in counseling, we talk about the importance of the therapeutic relationship. And I think it really does just have that high priority of the therapeutic relationship and, just making that an emphasis and priority, because once the client feels like they are safe and they feel like they can trust the counselor, they're able to open up. And when they start uncovering those reflections and things, they're able to just kind of divulge more into that healing process. And also, just really some of the foundational techniques and skills used in the integrative approach, like empathy, active listening. Those are all great things that counselors can use in the very basics of just helping the client be seen and feel comfortable with the counselor as well. And I think of Romans 15:7, which says, accept one another just as Christ has accepted you in order to bring praise of God to God. So just thinking about the approach and seeing them through the lens of, imago Deo, I think the author talked about, made in the image of God. That's an advantage of helping us uncover some of our biases, some of our blind spots that we might not be aware of. Some of those areas, we can start changing our thinking as counselors of not, predispositioning any thoughts or identities onto the client based on their story. But, with advantages to any theory, there's also some disadvantages. So, sometimes looking at our biases and things like that, those can be downfalls. Those can be, things that can kind of tangle up our helping the client reach their goals. So if we're not careful and not checking our biases, that might cause a stagnant relationship and a rift and things like that. And the approach really takes a lot of time of just having the client look inwardly, presently, and just cognitively reflect on the different emotions and things like that. And with that, the process of counseling might seem kind of repetitive and might seem, okay, why are we reflecting on this again? Why does, might seem a little slow going. So therefore, the integrative approach definitely takes a lot of creativity and a lot of just thinking of ways to continue to keep the counselor and the counselor and the client engaged, really, from session to session. So yes, it's important to just see the schemas that the counselor might use to actively look at how the client can cognitively reflect on their story and their journey, but also keeping it in a relevant way that the client is still pursuing their goals. But yeah, I think overall I've learned a ton from the course. I'm really excited to continue to dive in to the different approaches, and it's really just refreshing to see how a counselor can, integrate their faith into multiple different theories and techniques, and reflect it all back to Jesus and bring glory to him. So thank you, and I really did enjoy the course.